So if we were to look at some of the thoughts that people experience when they are experiencing anxiety, we'd notice a lot of negative thoughts or a lot of what-if scenarios, and most of them ending in a negative outcome. So a good example of this would be thinking about your drive to work. And as you're driving to work, you're thinking to yourself, did I leave the iron on? And that's a common thought that we might have, whether it's an actual iron for clothing or whether it's a straightening iron for your hair. And as you're driving, if you kind of say to yourself, chances are I probably did turn it off, or I can just call and have a family member check just in case. Then chances are you're not going to continue thinking about it. But what often happens with anxiety is we start to chase that thought. And as soon as we start to chase that thought, that concern grows bigger and bigger. So all of a sudden that worry about did I leave the hair straightener on or the clothing iron on, it might turn into, oh my goodness, it's going to start with a small fire that's going to start on the mat, and then it's going to grow, and then the whole house is going to burn down, and I'm not going to have a house to live in, and what if this happens, and I won't have a place to stay, so I might lose my job. And all of a sudden we've seen that one thought or that one worry just grow and snowball into something bigger. Often when this tends to happen, that's when some of the symptoms in our body starts to get worse. And so we notice more of that tightness in our chest, or we notice that shakiness or that heartbeat going faster, or sometimes even tingling or numbing. Whenever things like this happen, while we encourage people to have more balanced thoughts, it's really hard to do in that moment, especially when we're escaping situations or doing strategies that aren't always helpful. So sometimes people wonder, well, what really triggers this in the first place? And sometimes it can be something someone else is saying. Sometimes it's looking at something that can cause us some distress or anxiety. Sometimes it's just a physical sensation itself, anything that kind of mimics that experience of anxiety in our body that can set us off. So things like drinking caffeine, for instance. So there's lots and lots of different things that go into our experience of anxiety and when things start to get worse. Often people also ask the question, well, how did this start? Why am I experiencing this? And while there's a lot of research to suggest that there's multiple things that contribute to people's experiences of anxiety, what we know for sure is that often people have a biological disposition at times, or it's related to things that are happening in their environment, if not both. So sometimes there is a history in the family of anxiety or something that's similar to anxiety. Also, environmental factors might be, let's say, getting a promotion at work and now having a lot more on your plate than you normally do. And so those two experiences, whether it's our genetic history or whether it's our environmental factors, they go hand in hand. And it's how we deal with those triggers when anxiety comes up that really determines how long this experience is going to last. And often it can last a really long time. And when it does, and it goes unchecked, often it does also not only become tiring on our body, but it also starts to impact our mood. And we start to see people experiencing lower moods more often. And that's why anxiety can sometimes be comorbid with something like depression. And what we mean by comorbid is that there's two kind of concerns happening at the same time. So it's best to start working on anxiety early if you think it's something that you have, so that you have some skills around that to cope with things a little bit differently than you do now.